going to be right back. I got to leave for a minute. I'm Scott Schaefer, and welcome to another podcast of Speaking the Truth in Love for Life. We're getting off to a later start than usual today as we had some electrical problems, but I trust that we're going to be back into it again okay now. Well, our American government is preaching a moral message to the world on behalf of the American people. That's you and me. And so they're including you and me in this message that they're sending to every nation of the world. The Biden administration is saying to the world that to be an American is to stand for the LGBTQ lifestyle. And the Biden administration is seeking to change the morality of the world. And it is because this is not just a message to say, this is what Americans believe, but rather to say this is what we also want you to believe, that this message is not being received well by all the nations of the world, especially the Islamic nations of the world, which have their own national religion of Islam. And so they're saying that we want you to follow us and support the LGBTQ lifestyle as we are celebrating Pride Month this June. So how's that for good foreign diplomacy and foreign relations? Well, in particular, the Islamic nation of Kuwait responded to the American declaration of Pride Month and wanting all nations of the world to support Pride Month. The Kuwaiti officials said, foreign embassies must respect the public order of Kuwait and its official religion. The United States then defended its actions and its messaging to the world in particular to Kuwait, saying, "The United States proudly advances efforts around the globe to protect all individuals, including LGBTQ plus persons, from violence and abuse, criminalization, discrimination, and stigma, and to empower marginalized populations and local civil society, including the LGBTQ plus community." And yes, we should be protecting all persons from violence and abuse. That makes sense. But the America statement of the American government does not just end there. Their statement goes on to demand positive support for the LGBTQ lifestyle. Islamic nations, in a sense, have said, look, the message that you are giving might work in Washington, D.C., but we're not in Washington, D.C. It doesn't work with us. The American government, in a sense, really what they're doing is proselytizing the whole world to capitulate and follow their new morality. It is forcefully pushing all nations of the earth to join in their new morality. It is furthering the immoral agenda of the LGBTQ plus movement in the name of the American people. So oddly enough, I want to join the Islamic nations in protest, saying the United States State Department is not speaking for this particular American, not for me. Now, regarding the LGBTQ revolution, if you are a parent, I want you to please know that the United States government is coming for your child if they have not already done so. They're seeking to indoctrinate your child and change your child to go against what you want them to believe and follow. Recent news shows that more and more children are coming under the pressures of this new morality. And there are more and more children that are now being accused of sexual harassment and hate crimes simply for insisting that boys are boys and girls are girls, simply because they are not using the preferred pronouns of another child. This is absurd and beyond belief, but yet it's not a joke. This is really happening. The child's only offense was using incorrect pronouns. There was a girl who was a transgender, and she wanted to go by they, but there were boys who called her her. They called her her, using the pronoun her. And that brought up charges of sexual harassment upon these children, hurting and harming their future. Parents, you need to stand up against this. Young students should not have to live in the fear of punishment simply if they do not follow the left's far-reaching and changing fads about speech, calling certain words now hate speech. So we can see that Christians are going to face an incredible onslaught and an incredible challenge in our world that is quickly changing around us as government under the Biden administration is putting on new demands. And if you don't follow their demands, it will bring incredible difficulty. We are now seeing our government trying to force people into LGBTQ compliance, not just with social pressure, but with threats that could basically harm one's future, that could harm one from ever getting a good job in their field of choice. It could harm a person that could put a crime on their record. Children are being accused of sexual harassment simply because they understand the distinction between boys and girls. Parents, it's time to seriously think, if your child is in a public school, to seriously think about pulling them out, or otherwise your child could be in a possible predicament of having their future harmed. And things, of course, are only going to get worse from here as we begin to live in a society that has no distinction between boys and girls. Well, if the Biden administration has not been bad enough for its promotion of immorality to our children, where now 39% of Generation Z, that is those ages 26 and under, 39% now self-identify as LGBTQ in recent polling. And if that's not bad enough, the Biden administration is also destroying our economy, as you can see just by going to a gas station or a grocery store. The stock market closed today below 30,000, where only 7 months ago it was above 36,000. And just in the last week, it has dropped by 7.5%. And so we are now in a bear market for the stock market, and it shows that we are entering a recession. It has been said that the inflation rate is 8.6%, but in reality, it is much more than that. Gasoline price inflation rate is at 48%. Food prices, the inflation rate for food is at 12%. The inflation rate for fuel oil is 107%. The inflation rate for car prices is 27%. And just since Biden has took office over the last 17 months, gasoline prices have risen by 140%. When the national average for gasoline cost per gallon has gone up every single day for the last 3 weeks, where it's now over $5 a gallon. 70% of Americans now say they are living from paycheck to paycheck. 80% of Americans now say that our country is headed in the wrong direction. I wonder about the other 20%, actually. The tough thing is there is still another 2.5 years to go in the Biden administration, and how much worse will it continue to get? The AP Newswire now reports that 1 in every 5 pregnancies in the United States ends in abortion. That is 20% of all American babies today die in the womb. How sad is that? What do you imagine God thinks about that? God must certainly be lifting his blessing off of our nation for what is going on. 930,000 babies were aborted in America in the year 2020. Babies that were created in the image of God. Well, whether our Supreme Court ends up overturning the Roe versus Wade case from almost 50 years ago, as has been leaked a month ago. And we need to correct our own state of Kansas Supreme Court's mistake that our Supreme Court of Kansas did back in the year 2019, where they manufactured a right to abortion in Kansas which never existed before then. That is why the Value Them Both amendment is so important. The Value Them Both amendment aims to undo that politically motivated 2019 ruling by the left-leaning State Supreme Court of Kansas. It wrongly found the state constitution included this so-called right to abortion. That ruling has essentially made it impossible to advance any meaningful pro-life legislation. If passed by the people of Kansas, the Value Them Both amendment, valuing both mother and baby, would reaffirm that there is no right to abortion in the state constitution. And this would allow Kansas to protect pregnant women and their babies, saving lives and sparing women the trauma that a number of women have suffered through abortion, where there have been botched abortions, where there have been women who've had to be taken to the hospital because of severe hemorrhaging. That's happened to even 3 cases in Kansas over the last few months, as has been known and has become public. Well, I want to encourage you to vote yes for that amendment that will come up on August 2nd in Kansas, the Value Them Both Amendment. Pope Benedict XVI was right when he said 15 years ago, "The fundamental human right, which presupposes every other right, is the right to life itself. This is true of life from the moment of conception until its natural end." He said, consequently, abortion cannot be a human right. In fact, it's the very opposite. Rather, it's a deep wound upon society. And friends, how you and I can heal that wound, at least upon the society of Kansas, at the very least, is to be able to vote for the Value Them Both Amendment on August 2nd. So vote yes, and vote to support both mother and baby who are created in the image of God. Well, in all of this, as things continue to be difficult in this society that we're living in, yet we know that God is in control. He told us in the end times that things would go from bad to worse. He told us that the end times would be perilous and difficult. And we have the privilege of God allowing us to be able to live in these end times, where we can be light in the darkness and we can make a difference. Let's do so for the glory of God. As in 1 Corinthians 10:31, it says, whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, and that includes voting, do all to the glory of God. Well, I'm Scott Schaefer, and thanks for listening. And let's go and speak the truth in love for life.
When peace like a river attendeth my way, when silence